Hi guys, welcome back to History Revision Success. So what I'm going to do for you in this video is I'm going to summarize the entire police topic for the "Was there a terror state" themed question. I'm going to summarize it really quickly for you so you can use this as a revision resource. And then I'm going to add to the end some A-star terminology that you can use to describe and evaluate the terror state with. So this should give you all the tools you need to do really, really well in explaining and evaluating how the police worked for Hitler in terms of creating a terror state in Germany. So the police, or the German state, sorry, had multiple instruments of repression and used various means to achieve their desires. Instruments of repression they had were the Gestapo, the SS, the SD, the SA, and informers. Now, a key moment in this timeline is 1936, when Himmler is made chief of police, and this brought the Gestapo and SS under his control. In terms of methods, so we have murder, beatings, execution, press censorship, dismissal from work, arrest, concentration camps, sterilization, intimidation, and prison. Some key figures for you. These are all figures that you can use to get an A-star in your essays because they provide specific, detailed evidence where you can prove the effectiveness and the role of the police force. So 1942, there were 30,000 Gestapo officers. 1939, there were 50,000 SD officers. So both evidence of the wide-ranging use of both police forces. However, of course, if you've watched the more extensive video on the police, you know that 30,000 Gestapo officers was not enough to do the job. So you can use that in a more critical manner in order to evaluate them and suggest there are weaknesses. July 1933, over 26,000 political prisoners. And from 1933 to 1945, 800,000 were detained for resistance. That shows the effectiveness of the police force in terms of ensuring and creating conformity to the regime, being that body, that repressive body to force conformity. 1933 to 1939, the courts sentenced 225,000 people to a total of 600,000 years imprisonment for political offences. So when we're evaluating the effectiveness of the police force versus things like propaganda, we can use these figures to prove how necessary the police force were. Finally, we've got from 1933 to 1945, there were 32,000 people who were legally executed through the use of the special courts and the people's courts. So you can link it here into that factor we already looked at on the law, the courts, the judges, the lawyers. And from 1933 onwards, concentration camps were developed. Now, in terms of some key historiography to describe the police force, Malman describes it as omniscient, omnipotent, and omnipresent, all-knowing, all-powerful, everywhere. Kershaw describes it as the ideological powerhouse of the Third Reich, but he also says that the merge of the Gestapo with the SS created the most powerful agency of repression, merging with the most dynamic ideological force in the Nazi movement. Sachs also describes it as a systemless system. So some key thoughts. Now, originally, there was an image of the Nazi police state as a smooth, totalitarian regime dominated by Hitler. However, in recent years, this has been modified, and instead we need to realize it's a maze of overlapping bodies, as Sachs calls it, a systemless system. To access the A-star, some really good terminology you can use to describe the police system is polycratic, feudal, chaotic. So polycratic means to have many different bodies. If a problem emerged, Hitler simply created a new body to deal with it, a new organization. feudal. So the dominance of Nazi leaders at head of their agency was a little bit like medieval barons in charge of their followers. Barons owed their ultimate loyalty to the king, and the Nazi leaders owed their ultimate loyalty to Hitler. And it was this feudal-like nature of the police system that created lots of the internal rivalries and competition that almost stagnated it at points. Finally, we have chaotic, unclear where responsibility lies due to the overlapping bodies and a result of no clear power structure. So overall, Hitler's system was effective as rivalries encouraged effectiveness, and Hitler's reliance on the old regime worked as the old system was effective. He didn't create anything new. He didn't, allow his administration to develop a completely new police system. He based his system on old ideas and quite effectively created an organization that instilled power, fear, and conformity from the population.